Hello folks, I'm Alex, this is Alex Unabridged, and these are my thoughts on Space Opera by Catherynne M. Valente. So welcome back to the channel if that is the case. Yes, another thoughts video, this one for the final pick of 2024 for my science fiction for the somewhat hesitant series, and this one was Space Opera by Catherynne M. Valente. Straight up, I will say this was a DNF, unfortunately, after about 150 pages. I gave it a really good go because I really wanted to like this, but in the end, I just couldn't get on board with it. So whilst I didn't finish it, I do want to give some thoughts on it, on why I didn't get on with it, and also on just some of the elements that I did think was good, because I don't think that this is a bad book. I think this is just one of those books where it's just not for me. So I want to kind of just go through those today. What's this about then? This is set in a universe, our universe, but one that is vast, strange, and bustling with bizarre life. A century ago, in this version of our universe, intelligent life was nearly destroyed in what was called the Sentience Wars. And to prevent the collapse of galactic civilization, a grand tradition was born, which was a galactic talent show known as the Metagalactic Grand Prix. So think like Space Eurovision. This is kind of a flamboyant interstellar sort of competition that determines whether species are deemed sentient and worth inclusion in the communal sort of fold, or whether they should be exterminated. And as the book begins, humans, as a relatively young and somewhat chaotic species, are the latest to be inducted into this metagalactic Grand Prix. To secure Earth's place in the galaxy and prove its sentience, representatives from Earth must compose and perform a dazzling song that meets extraterrestrial standards of artistry and emotion. That's how they're measuring sentience. And failure to basically not come last in this competition will result in humanity's complete obliteration. So enter washed up glam rocker Dinesh, or Decibel Jones, and his former bandmate Synth Ultraviolet, who were once part of a flamboyant sort of glam rock band called Decibel Jones and the Absolute Zeros. They are well past their glory days. They are burdened with a lot of personal baggage, and they're missing a band member. So they're struggling to try and find their creativity again, and sort of the reckless energy that they once had. And they are whisked away basically to meet a dazzling array of very, very strange alien civilizations and to perform their song for the survival of the entire human race. So that's the premise basically of this. So thoughts then. I really loved the sound of that, and there's a lot in there that is very fun in concept. But the style of this particularly appeals to a very particular taste in style and humour, because this is humour largely. And unfortunately, it's not really my taste. That's what I kind of came to the conclusion with. That's a bit inaccurate, to be fair. It takes what is my taste in terms of some levels of absurdism, randomness, sort of deadpan and often acerbic wit. Those are absolutely my cup of tea. But it just cranks those elements up so high, especially in terms of the absurdism, that it just became kind of a constant assault on my brain. There were moments that really made me laugh. There were elements that I really did enjoy. But after a constant barrage of this kind of bonkersness, I just got exhausted with it and just kind of couldn't keep going with it. I went and read a couple of reviews on Goodreads after I DNF'd it, to see if I was really out on a limb with how I felt about it. I wasn't, and I want to just read the beginning of a review that kind of sums up some of the feelings that I had about it. The review is, Space Opera is Catherynne Valente at her most creatively and exuberantly unreadable. It's a slick, holographic tale that I bounced off so hard and so repeatedly that it kind of started to hurt. Reading this book is like being the only sober person at a party when everyone else is high out of their minds on magic mushrooms. And yeah, that's quite that's quite accurate. It is really creative. It's often wildly and wonderfully creative. I've got to give it props for that. I love what is cooking in Valente's brain. That it's fabulously fun and often hilarious world and creatures that she's coming up with. Her imagination is really something else. I wouldn't be the first person at all by far to draw parallels between Valente's space opera and say like Douglas Adams and Hitchhikers. And I've read Hitchhikers and I did enjoy it. It's not like my favourite sort of science fiction, but I did enjoy it. It was a really good fun read. But what Adams did right, I think for me at least, is that within his very bizarre and imaginative world within Hitchhikers, he maintains for me a very accessible writing style, and made kind of quite a lot more of the character and plot within that as well. And I think that's where space opera kind of lost me a bit. The plot feels quite thin and it goes off on tangents quite regularly as well. And I never really felt that I had the space to kind of really get to know the characters in it either, because I was constantly sort of wading through the writing in search of kind of coherence in a lot of cases. The writing style is what really just made me unable to finish this. And it is just because it is not my cup of tea. It's a bit too word salad in some respects for me. Super long sentences, almost devoid of punctuation in some cases, that can go on for sort of half a page, like a full paragraph that is just a sentence. And they are so packed full of absurd ideas that for me they kind of overshot the point of humour and just kind of ended up in kind of a bafflement, a bombardment. As I say, it was kind of exhausting reading it. I'll give you an example from early in the book. Yet for a while, Decibel Jones and the Absolute Zeros loved nothing more than showing off. Give them the soggiest cast-off, thigh-high stockings worth of a tune and the most obnoxiously Campari-drunk open mic night reject half-sucked raspberry lorry of a lyric, and in one night, Des, Mira and Ort would turn around a glam-grind anthem perfectly crystallising the despair of the young enslaved by the London real estate market, crossbred with the desperate futuro-cosmic hope of murdering a Martian catwalk in a satin slip while guzzling a rubbish bin full of cheap ruby port, as sung by the comet-pummeled ghost of Oscar Wilde snorting stars like meth. Give them a hostile empty stage with a lighting rig left over from a lesser-known BBC period drama, a putrefying zombie of a soundboard, and a room with more cigarette butts than people. And before you could say no, stop, don't, why? The place would be a new planet crawling with gorgeous postmodern broke-down fashion wraiths filled with the unfaceable existential horror of all unpaid interns, the pent-up sexuality of unwalloped pinatas, and cheap quasi-infinite lager. Yeah, I can find examples like that from most pages, and that's not even the most outlandish of those that I read in the 150 pages that I got through. And that's just too much for me, personally. And I think I found it kind of frustrating because there were moments where, although still very wordy, Valente wrote something that I actually really enjoyed. And that, there are themes and ideas in the book that I appreciated as well, but again, I couldn't really focus on them properly because of the constant sort of word bombardment. And I don't mind working for meaning in a text, not at all. But I don't want to have to kind of break down the structure of every other sentence to try and make sense of it. I think what works against this in some respects is its length. I think halve it, make it a lot shorter, and it would have been more manageable for me. It would have been like, yes, it would have been an incredibly rich meal, but it wouldn't have been too much food, if you know what I mean. The concept and the humour in at its core is funny, but for a book that sounds and feels like it should be so much fun, it wasn't really that much fun to read. It wasn't boring either, not by a long stretch, but it was just too much. It was just too much of everything, really. I think the best analogy I can use for this, especially given its kind of its glitz and glam, in terms of its kind of its aesthetic, its kind of feel, is this the word use in this. It is a glitter bomb of words, and for me personally, that just ends up being exhausting and a bit irritating. If you like the idea of the absurdity of atoms like dialed up to 100, then you might really enjoy this. There is good stuff in it. That's what I'm saying. There is good stuff in it. But the style of it for me it's just not my bag, unfortunately. So I'm not going to give this a rating. That would be unfair because I haven't finished it. I'll just say it's a DNF because whilst I can see a lot of good stuff in it, it's just absolutely not my cup of tea in terms of style. So not the best way to finish off the first year of my science fiction project with a DNF, but that's the way it goes. I really, really wanted to like this one. I will say though that if anybody has read any of Valente's other books, do let me know if her style in those is the same or different as it is in space opera. There's quite a bit of her stuff that I think has a really interesting premise, and I really, as I say, I love her like creative imagination. Like the creatures and the aliens and stuff like this are so creative. The world, the ideas are creative. And I would absolutely be open to trying some more of her stuff if I know that the style is a little less emphatically absurd than it is in space opera. So do let me know if you are more familiar with Cat Valente's work. So that is year one of science fiction for the somewhat hesitant, all wrapped up. I've had an absolutely fantastic year with that, and of course I'm going into a second year of it in 2025 with science fiction for the somewhat less hesitant. So if you are intrigued to know what I'm going to be reading in 2025 in terms of science fiction, my video is already out. I will drop a link in the description to that so you can see what's coming up. But the first of those will be A Canticle for Leibowitz. So I will have a review out for that in early February, I should think. But yeah, do check out that video if you've not already seen it and you're interested to know what science fiction I've got coming up. And if you fancy a buddy read on anything, then do let me know. But that will do from me today. Thank you very much for watching, folks. As always, do drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do let me know if you have read space opera and what you thought of it. I'll be back on Sunday with some more bookish ramblings of some sort, so I do hope you'll join me for that then. But from me, for now, that's ta-ra.